I know. So
I can dye my hair.
she took care of that. She also let some of the out-of-towners that were up here for being filmed stay at her house. So
Wow.
she's got some great stories, so I'm really excited to have her here, so.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say this was a big thing for me to happen to me because I wasn't young when this came to town, and I had wished I was, but I was in my 40s. And so I got to thinking about my father. I grew up in Roslyn. I know that's impressive. I grew up in Roslyn, and my daddy was a coal miner, and he was 40 when the mines shut down in '63, and I was just young. I was young. And I remember I cried because I didn't think that Daddy would be able to find anything, any kind of work, because he was 40, and that to me was old. And so when Northern Exposure came to town, I was 40s. And I thought, gosh, I wish I was young, but everyone knows that life begins at 40. So there was this ad in the paper, and they wanted people of all sizes, ages, and everything to come up to the brick and bring a couple of pictures of themselves and see what went on. Well, my daughter and I went up, and I took a couple pictures of myself. You see them up there. And the one in the red dress, I had been in this theater group, and I played the bad girl all the time. Anybody shot, killed, whatever necessary. And I thought, well, I'll show them that. And they weren't really impressed with that. They liked the other picture, and they talked to me. And so the next thing you know, they've got something lined up for the whole town to go into, and it's called Wish Push. How many of you know where Wish Push is? Well, my secretary and everybody got, they were going to film in a nice day up there at Wish Push, and they brought some people over from Seattle, and in a big bus, and so there were a lot of people, up there that day, And then about 2 o'clock, the wind came up, and it just blew and blew like today, it blew, and everything was freezing cold, and my secretary was in her shorts and a tank top and everything. And they finally decided that, they'd feed us, so they fed us some things on a barbecue and some good food, there. And she got stung by something happened to her breast there with one of the coals or something. And, the whole thing was just kind of, I thought, boy, do we really want to do this or not? But then things worked on, and so when they started to get serious about checking us all in and all the paperwork and everything, well, I went around and started helping people who couldn't read or write, or whatever, they didn't have their glasses or whatever. I'd help them with their paperwork, and we all had all this paperwork going on, and so then pretty soon the background director started asking me if I knew a person that could ride a bike, or did I know where this, you know, an old lady was that could do a kissing scene on somebody's front porch. And, I found a nice old lady that in a wheelchair. And I took the director over there, and he thought she was fine. He thought she'd had a couple of facelifts, but that'd be fine. And then he wanted a guy to go with her, so I knew an old vaudeville actor that was in our theater group, and I thought, well, I think Dave could do this, and so I introduced him to Dave, and Dave was perfect. He liked the couple, and the next thing you know, they're on the porch kissing.
Oh,
Well, the next, I've got things going on like that on the side all the time, do you know this, do you know that, do you know some kids? Well, I knew my nephews and nieces, and I knew my daughter, and, I start bringing all the kids in. Well, the first thing that got kind of serious for me was all the Native Americans. They brought in Native Americans from everywhere. There was Cheyenne, there was Cherokee, there was Blackfeet, they were from all the tribes, Pendleton, Omak, everywhere. And they put us all in this one holding area, and so I'm walking around helping everybody with the paperwork and stuff, and one of the Native Americans told me, he said, you realize that some of our tribes don't get along. And I hadn't realized that. So he sat down and told me the story of the tribes, and, different tribes that were, but you would never be able to tell because everybody was very polite and nice, to everybody, they just didn't look at them. So I thought, well, and then he told me about Sundance, they have Sundance, that everyone gets together and they're good to each other, and then after that, they can go back to, not getting along. Well, not only was that a problem, but some of these fellows didn't have places to stay when they came over to Cleveland. We didn't have a lot of hotels or motels or whatever, It wasn't real big time like it is now. So these poor fellows were sleeping in their cars. Some of them were in their cars, and some of them, I don't know where they were going. But I eventually ended up bringing some of these, Indians, Native Americans out to my house, to the farm, and they stayed there. There'd been 6 or 7 of them, and they'd have their sleeping bags or whatever they needed, and they'd come out to our farm, And they were always good to me. They would get up, fix me breakfast in the morning, or, fry bread, or give me a little something for my refrigerator, maybe a towel or something, but they were always kind to give me something, when they left, or, And then eventually, they started going up to the Last Resort, or over to the Iron Horse Inn in South Cleveland, because eventually the movie company became aware that I was taking them out to the farm and stuff, and they thought, well, we better start doing something about that, so. But then when they would go to these different places to stay, they would call Mary and me, and they'd say, could you guys come and get us, and so we can come out to the farm and just visit for a while or something. So I guess they liked us. And that was nice. Well, one time we had Miss Indian World out there. Mary Mary was having a float decorating party out at the farm, cars and everything, and Miss Indian World and her sponsor came, and they didn't really have a place to stay either. And so they stayed at the farm. And, so that was fine. And then the next day, when I took them up to the set, they opened their trunk and they had all the artifacts from Custer's Last Stand, only it was the Indian version of that. And I thought that was very interesting. Miss Indian World was just beautiful, but I guess they didn't do much with her on the set. You know, sometimes things went that way. Okay, now I will talk about what happened when we came on set. I took all the extras over to wardrobe, and they would dress us for the day, or whatever outfits they needed us to wear. There's a picture up there somewhere. Okay, and we brought our vehicles. They would ask us, you know, did we have a vehicle? And I had several vehicles. I had a 50s farm truck, which I had to drive up there one day, and I'm still mad about because it was huge. And I had to drive it up to the set, and John Cullum was sitting there, and he looked at me and he says, I never saw a lady drive a big truck like that before, and that's just marvelous. And I was, you know, I was still mad, but it was. So I had a 77 Ford rust-colored pickup. You see that in the scenes all the time. I had 63 Black Falcon. I'm saying Harold has all this. I had a 62 blue Falcon pickup, and we carried a snowmobile on that a lot. And then one time they had me bring a riverboat up there. So they were asking me to bring things all the time, and those pickups were making more money than I was. Okay, now you probably want to know about the stars, of course. This is what, the stars, they were wonderful. Rob Morrow was, he could get really tough, but he was a very nice person. If the Native Americans made him anything, he would send them a thank you card. I mean, he was that nice about everything. Darren Burroughs, he was a wonderful young man. You know, he just he was always howling like a dog or doing something to entertain us around there, you know, and I'd say, you're a golden retriever today, or you're a Labrador retriever or something. It's right on, you know, and Janine was a lovely person. One day it was raining, and she would ask me to come and sit with her under her umbrella, and I'd say, no, I'm supposed to be standing out here. They told me to stand over here. And she says, you come over here and sit with me. She says, if they say anything, she says, you tell them Janine told you it was all right. Right? Yes.
Could you say their character names? Because I'm not sure who Janine is or who.
Maggie.
Maggie. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then the other one that was the dog
Ed.
impersonator?
Ed.
Okay.
Played the Native American.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Elaine Miles, she and her mom would come out to the farm, and sometimes her mom was one of the people that stayed out at our farm too. John Corbett, we have a picture of John and Mary up here somewhere. And he was nice, he liked to visit with Mary. But she was a young girl, and I reminded everybody of that. Okay, so we all had lots of clothes to choose from. We were always going to wardrobe changing for different costumes and different things, and I had to have those checked in at night to make sure no one took them home or whatever. Sometimes the outfits they chose for us they weren't really that stylish or anything, you know, and one older lady told me one day, she said, "They sure know how to dress us, don't they?" She had long sleeves down here. But anyway, they had a lot of rules. We weren't to be talking to the actors. We couldn't take pictures, we couldn't talk to them. We couldn't be talking on set, of course, while they were filming or anything. We could talk in the green room. But, you know, rules had to be followed. And if you didn't follow the rules, you found yourself not working anymore. And so I always tried to follow every single rule. And that's the way it went. Okay, one day, Mad Magazine came to Roslyn. And I guess everything was pretty funny to them. You know how Mad Magazine is. Well, John Roethlisberger and myself were walking across the street, and I was dressed as a Native American that day. I had a little band on my head. You can see one of these pictures. Yeah. And, yeah, there it is. Anyway, I was walking with John, and they started laughing. And the next thing I knew, we were in the Mad Magazine. It was over here. I couldn't believe it when I saw it, but there was John and I, you know, and I thought, oh, yeah. Nice.
There it is, right there.
Yeah. And that picture that day, we took over on, at Redmond. See, all the inside shots were shot in Redmond, and all the outside shots were shot in Roslyn. That's Janine waving at me, and that was the last time I ever saw her. That was the Ellensburg Parade. Okay, in Roslyn, some of the people in Roslyn at first did not appreciate some being told they couldn't cross the street during filming or whatever, you know. Especially if they were old timers trying to get their social security checks at the post office. So, there was about 4 or 5 of them with their checks in the the post office, and they wanted to come out. But they were, you know, when Northern Exposure first came, they had rules. They could shut down this street and they could do that, and you know, we're rolling and everything. Well, Roslyn people did not take that, so they just walked on out in the middle of the scene. They said, we're not gonna you're not gonna tell us what to do. And eventually things worked out, you know. Roslyn loved Northern Exposure, and Northern Exposure loved them in the end. But it took a few times. It took the running of the bulls, wherever that is now. That was something. I had to get these fellows to come in. I didn't ask them to come in, somehow they knew to come in to sign up. And they didn't know what they were signing up for. And I told them, I said, you'll be without clothes. Well, they said that was fine. They're loggers, you know, they know everything. So then the directors decided that us ladies shouldn't be watching them run through town with, So they put us, you know, behind the window there in Ruth Ann's store and closed the blinds. I couldn't figure that out because the town was out. Okay, fine. Well, then, they closed everything up. And then after a while, I guess they put some kind of shorts on the men or whatever for, and they brought us out, you know, so that, you know, so everyone was on the street watching these guys run through town and everything, you know, well, it was all fun and happy. But, Rosalind's council didn't think that was so funny and happy because they were promised when Northern Exposure came to town that they wouldn't do anything to embarrass the town. Well, I mean, I'm gonna tell you about Roslyn. In 1924, in the 1920s, they had 24 different taverns, one for each nationality. And that was really something, and through the 50s, of course, things calmed down. They got rid of some of the taverns, but now you can imagine, this is a coal mining town, and you know, nothing's gonna embarrass Roslyn, and so, anyway, the council was pretty upset with this little episode here. So, but Northern Exposure went in and they went to the meetings and everything and smoothed it all over and everything turned out okay. You know, and they realized it was just kind of humorous really, and so no one really got too upset anymore on that one. You know, so it all worked out. Then they just kept on going after that, you know, and after that, you know, they had a little radio incident. They weren't supposed to have all these radios on set because if you operate the radio, I don't know what the rules are on that, but you're supposed to have some kind of, does anyone here know about radios that, you know, you're not supposed to really be operating them without some education?
FCC licensing? FDIC.
Right,
Yeah.
you know. And one day they gave me a radio and I nearly died, you know, because the idea of carrying that around and waiting for them to tell me what, and I thought I was gonna die that day, but I didn't. That radio incident, one day a man came to town and the radio, you know, they got wind of it, that the guy was coming to check out the radio situation. Boy, I tell you, they hid about 15 of those radios. And then after the coast was clear, they all came back out. But, you know, that's what happened. Okay, we had to find children. We had to find we had to find people who looked Italian for this one thing one day. And I'm thinking, and they didn't give me a lot of time to find these things, but I found them, you know. But the one fellow I found was the county commissioner, because I said, can you help me out? I said, they need an Italian man to kind of man a fruit stand or something out there in front of a building. And He says, oh, yeah, sure. So I found him, and he did it. All these people were really good to me about finding, what they needed to do. I had to find a doctor, so that, Rob Morrow would have, look like he was doing the right thing and everything. So I asked our local doctors, but they were all busy, and they said they'd love to do it, but they were busy. So I called up a guy in Ellensburg, and he came right up and brought his wife, and he was the doctor, and he asked me, could I come back? I said, as far as I'm concerned, you can, but I have to wait for, I found them. I found a chief of police that was no longer a chief of police, but he was able to help them. And then John Corbett needed someone to help him with the song As Time Goes By on the piano. He played it by ear. So I brought in Charlene Ellis. She's a judge's wife, and she's a very good pianist, and she helped him all day with that song. The thing I realized about Roslyn while I was there, I realized I had grown up in a little coal mining town here, and now at night they would turn these big lamps on and everything to do a scene, and made Roslyn beautiful. That's what was just lovely. You'd walk around at night, and it was a big city, with all the lights and the beauty of Roslyn. It was just something to appreciate, and I really appreciated that. What I didn't appreciate was when I had to go over to Redmond, they would film inside scenes over there. I had to drive, and that meant I drove over the pass. Well, I'd only driven over the pass about 2 times, one to go to the hospital with somebody, and I just didn't do that kind of thing. When you're raised in Roslyn, you didn't do those kind of things. But here I had a map. Sometimes it'd be on site out by Monroe, way out in the Tules. And I had to go there and be on time. You had to be there at 6 in the morning. And I had to leave at 3 in the morning or whatever, and drive over there and find the site, or go to Redmond, whatever I was doing, with this map. And I was shaking all the way. I thought, I'm gonna get killed going over here. I can't do this, but I did. I did this. Now, I know for you folks, how many of you are from the other side of it originally here? Yeah, you guys all know how to drive. It's just, and so then when I go on set, over there, I could relax for a while because I was on set, but then at nighttime, we'd film for hours, I'd be driving back, and it was like, I can't do this, but I did, I did. Now on set, I'm gonna talk about on set. Barry Corbin had a beautiful house on set. It was made of logs. And the logs were made out of cardboard rolls.
Oh my gosh.
That's what you made them out of. And they made this beautiful set that we had a party, a dinner one time in, and they gave us all nice things to wear. And we're in this beautiful cardboard log house. It's just beautiful, and I'm thinking, wow, this is lovely, and and then Rob Morrow's house, we had that picture taken the group picture, there's some of us in that stylish outfits we're wearing. Okay. They had this house for Rob Morrow, and it took us probably half a day to take that picture, because we had to say cheese, we had to say whatever, and we all had to, yeah, right there.
Bottom one.
And, yeah, it was half a day to take that picture, you know, and then they didn't know if it was right. You see John Roethlisberger in that picture. He's the old guy with the beard that was in Mad Magazine with me. They told him that he was the face of Sicily, and they gave him a plaque for that, because, you know, the old fellow was really great, you know. And then I have a picture here that isn't up there of Jerry Morris. He was the barber, and he was our only local that actually got a speaking part. And this is one of my sewing friends, and Beth Matinich. They were looking for someone who needed to be a skier and to pull a dog, and be pulled by a dog and stuff, you know. And we found Beth, and she was wonderful. You can pass these pictures around here amongst yourselves. Now, I'm gonna talk about the license plates that we used for the vehicles we had here. I could do that. I could put those license plates on my vehicles, the different ones I had. And can I move with this? We had to have these on whenever we came to town, you know, whenever our vehicles came to town. And, you see these, Rick? Yeah. Think you could put them on? Yeah. That's my son-in-law. We'd die on the farm without him. I got invited to Barry Corbin's birthday party. It was over in Redmond at an old-time high school or something. That was nice. Harold and I got invited to different cast parties. I couldn't believe I was going to the cast parties, you know. Got a new dress one day, and we come in, and they have the CBS sign above us, and we stand there, and I'm thinking, Harold and I are having our picture taken under a CBS sign. A new dress, and I couldn't believe it. Anyway, we had a wrap party at one of the parties. The governor of the state was there, and it was at the aquarium in Seattle, and that was fun. And but like I say, it was just a lot of fun, but it was scary. And now I think I would like to have one of my neighbors who has moved out to Peel Point and has built a beautiful home, and he and his lovely wife. I think if you can come up here and read what I gave you.
All right.
Larry Stauffer, and his wife Dana.
So evidently Joanne kept notes about her daily activities as it relates to these scenes, and so evidently this is one of the days or one of the scenes. So this is the circus scene. Today we filmed a circus scene. There was a real brown bear, juggling acts and tumbling acts. While we were waiting to be called, Jimbo and I were talking. He said, the more we were in the series, the less important we were because we weren't really seen. If you're seen a lot, you're not in it so much. I felt sad because I knew he was probably right. I'm in it all the time, but not really seen. We were eating lunch when Squeak from the newspaper came up and told me to cut the modesty and would I please interview with her. She said the newspaper wants stories about locals that are in the series. She called me the infamous Joanne Iverson. John Varicki was yelling at Bonita a lot today about not doing her job. He said she should be more aware of what's going on the set. He also yelled at her about paying the Indians who traveled over here too much travel time. I just couldn't believe it. Shelley, my niece, went with me today to film. I wondered how she would do, or if she would really be that interested. She must have been excited because she got up early, took a shower, and dressed before I even started. Today we filmed in front of the green room in the empty lot. We watched a large school bus that had been painted blues and greens with little figures of circus people, audience, tents, etc., doing different scenes. There was the brown bear in the little cage that had to be opened and closed, and walked in and out every time they reset. They placed me about 1 foot from the bear. They could have used some local bears. The couple behind me seemed so uncomfortable about being by the bear. Elaine Miles stood about 2 feet in front of the bear. I asked her if she was afraid. She said no, but a few seconds later there was a noise on the street and the bear jumped and started to move. Someone yelled, "Elaine!" She was grabbed quickly by someone on the set and hurried a few feet away until they got the bear calmed down. And actually, the man holding the little brown bear, not really the trainer, and I probably was more in danger, but we were just extras. Preparation for tomorrow's shoot. Mary Jo had a big crowd of seniors decorating the float when we came home. I think you mentioned that earlier. At 9 p.m., she took Harold and Shelley to Ellensburg and brought Stacy back so she could go with me tomorrow. I worked until 2 a.m. on my client's bills. A day in the life of Joanne.
Now, I have another friend here that traveled all the way from Oregon.
What?
Wow.
And Cece, would you come up here, honey? We've been friends forever. She's from Roslyn. She's from Roslyn. Bless your heart.
50s farm truck. The biggest thing that happened to me today was that I actually drove the old 50 farm truck from Peel Point. I couldn't believe I actually had done it and not been stopped. I didn't wreck or anything. It was kind of exciting.
Joanne, I have a question for you relative to the actual time that they spent shooting in town and in the outskirts. You said the inside scenes were in Redmond, but some of the shows that I've seen, there was a lot of outside scenes too. You mentioned up towards Salmon Sac, but how, when they shut the town down, how long was that usually for? And just give us some perspective on how often the shooting was going on locally.
Well, they'd come over here. I just remember it being winter a lot, maybe 3 days a week. And we could be out there 8 to 12 hours.
Wow.
You know. And that, the grips and the people that, you know, had to set up everything beforehand, their hours were longer, of course. You know, they were just out there all the time, and it just seemed like when they were here a lot. It just is, you know, like 3 to 5 days a week, you know, during February and, you know, January and February and March. Sometimes in the summer, I remember hot days, you know, there'd be some filming, but it just seemed like, it was only 3 to 5 days, 3 days a week, you know, maybe, you know, maybe they'd be here and, you know, it seemed like for a month or so, then they'd go and they'd come. And the more they were here, the more they took over to the other side, to Redmond, to film, you know, it just seemed like they had places over there to go too, you know, like over by Monroe, or maybe North Bend when they threw the catapult, and they threw it over there, and they threw it over here in the Teanaway. But, you know, it would just depend, you know, I guess I'll have to just have that book and you can see how long they were here. Any other questions?
What was your official title?
Well, my unofficial title was Roslyn Casting, but my official title would have been extra and background coordinator assistant.
Were you paid well?
Or
Or at all?
But I tell you this, I saved every one of my paychecks so that we could go on cruises. And we went on cruises, so we didn't dip into our own savings or anything. We went on cruises on what I made. So, any questions, JC?
Tell them about the moose and the bananas.
Oh, yeah, the moose that liked bananas. They walked him around.
With bananas? With bananas? Walking around with bananas?
Oh, well, you didn't see them.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
The famous catapult scene, which is
Yes.
legendary, I understand that was done at Rattlesnake Lake, over by North Bend.
Uh-huh.
But then did they move that whole contraption to Teanaway, and where? Were you there? Did you see them?
Oh, yes, I was there. I had to find a horseshoer for them. So I had to go back and find a horseshoer that I'd gone to school with, that I knew was a horseshoer. And, to come out there to the Teanaway. What farm was that? Mary, do you remember? Is it now part of the Nordstrom place? Or, I've got it written down in my notes. But if you were to take the old road, like you're going to Redbridge, and go out that way, it was kind of at this end.
And they rebuilt that whole catapult thing there?
Yeah, yeah, it was something to watch. Just the sound of that thing, you know, going. You know, it was just huge and it was mighty, you know. And there were a lot of people watching it.
Did you see him throw a piano? Did you see him throw the piano?
Oh, I've seen them throw everything, yes. Believe me.
They didn't throw a cow though, did they?
No, I was waiting for that, but no. No, they didn't do that. Yeah.
Tell us about the church that is still in town, and why was it built? Was that for the wedding?
Okay, we filmed in a little church in Easton, freezing cold one night, you know, but, it was a beautiful little church, but they wanted a church in Roslyn, so they built one just like the little one in Easton, and it's still in Roslyn. It belongs to Ojurovich, I think now, you know, the guy that has the doctor's office there. I think it did belong to him. Does it still belong to him? Anybody? So someone said it belonged to Steve, but it's there, it's still there. They built that, yeah.
But nothing on the inside, right?
With the Mustang.
No.
It's just a shell.
Yeah.
It's white.
They just built that for the wedding scene?
They built that, we had a little scene outside of it in Roslyn, I remember that. But on the inside, the one we were on the inside was actually an Easton church, which is no longer there.
Some church is gone, huh?
Right.
Where that was at?
I don't know. We have to find out. I'll find out.
Do you know anything about these plans for a reboot that I've been hearing about?
To remake,
To have
Like a reunion?
like 2 years to do some more filming?
you know, you can always hope. I personally, I don't think it's gonna happen, but because they've been talking about it since the series was over. They keep saying they're coming back to town. But it isn't here yet, and that's what, it went a long time ago. But wouldn't it be nice? Yeah, because Roslyn was a neat place for them to have it. And like I say, growing up in Roslyn, you know, when our big thing was just, you know, I could walk up to the Catholic church when I was a kid, and, you know,
Several times.
from the south end of Roslyn, 3 or 4 times, you know, go to Rosary or whatever. And then I could go uptown to get an ice cream cone or, you know, whatever at the freezer shop, which now has the camel on the side of the building. And, you know, we could go to the mail, the post office, and then you went home, and then that 9 o'clock whistle blew, and that was it. You were supposed to be home. When that 9 o'clock whistle blew, you didn't hang around out on the street or anything. You were home in your own yard. So when Northern Exposure came, can you imagine? And to see it from my point of view, you know? But you know, the people were good. You know, there's always gonna be a few people when you first start out, you know. What are these